Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. This in effect is Sunday Orchid Chat part 2, because we got part way through the Cattleyas, but because I was watering them the time was going on, so I decided to stop filming. So I'm going to carry on looking at the Cattleyas sort of from where we left off, except for I'm going to start with the mounts and then go back to the pots. Makes a bit of a break because we did pots in the last part of this. So we've got some in various places, and I've got to remember where everything is. Some of these are not going to take long because they're either not doing very well, or this tiny little thing here is a piece of BC Mackay that fell off when I potted it up, and it's grown a lot of roots recently. It hasn't pushed up a new growth for a while, which I suspect it's going to do any minute now. I mean, that's a hell of a long way off blooming size, but I get told off for throwing good bits of plants away, so I just decided to chuck it on the mount and see if it would grow, which it is. So that's that one. Oh, it's a stretch. And oh, this one is actually a lot of people's favourite mini Cattleya. It's got little lemon drops in it, and it's the one that's crossed with Encyclia Vitellina, and it's the lovely, which way round is it? I think it opens orange and fades to yellow, or the other way round. Yeah, that way round, and it lasts for ages. What it's done was, this was the last new growth it pushed up, slightly smaller than the previous one, but it bloomed very successfully. And I was expecting a new growth to come off of that one, but the new growth's come off of the previous bulb, which is this nice new growth here. So it's pushing on a nice new growth and coming into root growth as well. So lots of new roots coming out. And some of the older parts of the root system, like over here, they're all coming back into life as well, and down here. So there's older parts of the root system growing, as well as some brand new roots from the near the base of where that new growth is. So that one's doing okay. That'll be in bloom in a few months' time, I would think. I mean, that new growth's got to mature and then push up its buds and everything. Oh, fragrance on that Primulinum. It catches me every now and again. Yeah, we got a couple up here. This has got a name 8 foot long. It's not even worth bothering with. It just won't grow. It's one of the little tiny Cattleyas that was in the big box, and apart from pushing that root out, it's done practically nothing since then. It just doesn't seem to want to grow. I'm wondering whether to chuck it in a pot. But I'd end up breaking a lot of the roots or having to cut them. But it's just sit there doing nothing. It's not dying, but it's not growing either. Ugh. And then we've got another one. This one technically is not mine, because somebody actually put a bid in on this one. And this is a Cattleya, I can't even read that, Mary Chen, I think that is, or Mary Chen, crossed with Cattleya, I can't read it, it's faded. I'll put a pop up. It's easier to just look it up while I'm editing. Now this did something strange and put up a new growth in the middle of the plant, but it hasn't matured successfully. It's a stunted growth. But recently it started a brand new growth in the logical place, following on from where the previous one was. So it has actually got a nice new growth coming now. I suspect new roots will be starting on the plant soon. There's no sign of any root growth at the moment, apart from that little bit there. But nonetheless, it is growing. It's actively growing. It will grow some new roots soon. It's not like it needs them. There's enough on there to keep it going. Right, that's that little set up there. We haven't got any other Cattleya types up there, have we? No. Definitely none up there. Definitely none there. None there. None there. None there. Moving swiftly along. I'll get this one down because this one always gets forgotten when we look at the Cattleyas. And it's usually because it's got its back to us. This is my Cattleya cernua. Was Sophronitis once. And virtually all of the Sophronitis, probably all of them, got reclassified as Cattleyas. Now, once upon a time that knowledge was useful, because virtually across the board the Sophronitis have a strong red colour, and they were used extensively in hybridizations. So if you had a cross with Sophronitis in that didn't necessarily show the red or the deep orange, it would be lurking in there, and you could use that hybrid into another one with a paler colour, and sometimes the red would break out. So they were very useful, but of course we've lost that heritage now because they've all been reclassified as Cattleyas. You know, how do you know whether you've got what was a Sophronitis once unless you go and do some work and look it up? Nonetheless, lovely red flowers when it does bloom. This is currently doing nothing. It does that. After it blooms, it sits there doing nothing for quite a while, and then it bursts into growth in all directions, and then eventually it'll bloom again. But it's a nice happy little plant, likes it on that mount. It grows quite well for me. Nice one. Oh. The last of the little ones, I think. Right, can't remember when we last looked at these. Oh, quite a while ago, I would think. This is the Genmanii. It's the variety Cerulean. This did actually bloom not too long ago. Very attractive blooms. I was impressed. You know what I'm like with Cattleyas. But it's not looking very good as a plant at the moment. The oldest leaves that were on there when I got it are going, which is going to leave a bare bit of plant behind. This is just coming back into growth now. The new growth is tucked around the back there. You may be able to see the eye on the end of my finger, but that's where the new growth's going to come from. The roots are inactive at the moment. There's nothing wrong with them, they're just not actively growing. It will push. Oh yeah, there are a couple of little root tips in places, but not many. I wouldn't say it's in active growth, but at some point, once this new growth gets going, it will put out another burst of roots. And this one, when it does put out a burst of roots, it really has a serious go at it. It chucks out a lot, and some of them, as you can see, can grow very long. That's actually growing, that one's got a green tip on it. But yeah, I might have a go at cutting the rhizome on this. If I could get it to shoot out farther back, although this older part of the plant does look pretty dormant. Still, you never know, they can shoot out. And it's not really supporting the plant that much, although these are plump. You know, I suppose they are. I shall think about it, but yeah, coming on into growth. Quite a long break between blooming and starting a new growth. It had quite a bit of a rest. Oh, I think this is the last of the mounts. Get hooked up on everything and knock everything down, though, don't you? You know, when I water things, I take things down from racks in a set sequence. They don't catch on each other, and then they're put to, you know, to drip somewhere else, then go to the next one. So I don't get like hooks catching on things because there's nothing to catch them on. Right, this is the one from last year, got at the Welsh Orchid Festival, and this is a Laelia crossed with a Broughtonia. It has actually got a registered name, providing the cross is a certain way round. There was no way of telling. Now this has got no new basal growths anywhere on it at the moment, not a sign of life, but it is growing quite a few new roots in many places. They're coming out from all over the place, not large extensive roots, but lots of little roots pushing out. So it's slowly but surely coming back into growth, but no sign of basal growths yet, not a light. So we'll just have to patiently wait with that. That's had a setback for one reason or another, because that Welsh festival was in September, beginning of September, when this was in bloom. There's no way that's going to start new growths and mature them and come into bloom by September. Not a chance in hell. It's April now, so if it does bloom again this year, it's going to be a lot later in the year. Maybe well into winter. We shall see. We've got to get some new growths first, otherwise it definitely isn't going to bloom, is it? Right. Gently, gently. Gotcha. That's all the Cattleya Types up there. Yes, all the film. Nothing in there. There's one in there I'm going to have to get at. I'll leave it till last. I'll do this one so that I can get it out of the way. This is my Encyclia cordigera, and it's Siang Yu. And this had 4 spikes, and it whittled itself down to 1 All the others either had a rotten bulb underneath them or aborted the spike. This does not like my winter. It's too cold. It's as simple as that. If it had pushed the spikes out now, I'm sure they'd have been successful. But we managed to get one spike to complete and actually bloom. Although that did drop a bud. That did start out with 4 buds, now it's only got 3. But it's successfully bloomed for the first time in a long time. So I'm pleased that I've got to see the blooms again. I'd forgotten what they look like. For some reason I thought they were a greeny colour. Anyway, we've got it to bloom. Rescued from the brink, that one was. Whew. Virtually dead when I put it in the clay pot. No successful roots or anything. Right, now we didn't get onto this shelf, although we did look at these not too long ago on the grounds that most of these were in my little show that I did for the GVOS. So this one has bloomed several times recently. Shinfong, Little Sun, Young Min, Golden Boy. I've gone off that. Common as muck. There's people coming up on the GVOS sort of day. Yeah, I found loads of people got this one. And some of them are the other side of the Atlantic. Obviously popular. And basically you can see why it's popular, can't you? I mean, it's just a vibrant colour. So now that one is currently blooming and is therefore doing nothing else at the moment. No sign of new roots anywhere yet. No sign of new growth. Signs of scale around the base, which do it while you see it, Roger. This is just the rubbing alcohol. It just doesn't do a good job, but it does a better than nothing job. And it's because it's a very fine spray, it does get in round bases, and it evaporates quickly, dries them out, kills them sometimes, not always, but doesn't harm the plant because it evaporates quickly. Yeah, there's quite a few around that base. Trouble is, it leaves the bodies. So, you know, in 3 or 4 days' time, perhaps when I pick that plant up again, I'll probably kill them again if they're still there. And those may have been dead ones from last time. Right, next, this is my apple blossom, which has been renamed. I still call it a Varnagara. But coming on, bloods are starting to show their colour now. Buds are starting to show their colour now. We're going to have 3 or 4 good sized blooms on there. I'm not sure these last 2 buds are going to mature to full size, but I think the most I've ever had on a spike on this is 4. So going to 6, even if they're not all successful, is pretty good going. Basal growth 0 at the moment. Nothing's going to happen on this until those blooms are gone. So we've got a while to wait. No active root growth at the moment for the same reason, it's blooming. You don't very often get the 2 going together, but down in the pot is an extensive root system on this one. Did that last year for the first time, grew like twice as many roots in the season as it ever has. Right, the confusion we had with some pots. This was one of them, which I'd written a label out for. This is in yesterday's video, the Sunday Chat video, and I said that we did actually have a Laelia tenebrosa, and it's actually variety Aurea. It's now Cattleya, as most of them are. Well, not all of them, but most of them. Depends where they come from, I think. The Laelias that were left as Laelias come from a certain region, and all the other Laelias were just stuck in with Cattleyas, something like that. Don't quote me on it. This was its last new growth. Got a little bit too much light last year, which is strange for a Cattleya, but it can happen. And it's currently pushing out another new growth over here, which came out from a completely different part of the plant. Roots on this are not brilliant, but this new growth over here has just got some green nubbins at the base, so it is going to start growing a few new ones. But yeah, this is supposed to grow really large. Well, it hasn't yet. Still patiently waiting. I think that was quite a young plant. A couple of little signs of root growth in places, but not much. So just patiently waiting on that to grow on. Simple as that. This one has a strange growth habit for a Cattleya because it grows its pseudobulbs tight together. There's virtually no rhizome between them. They're very, very tightly clustered. Brilliant! It doesn't take up a lot of space. It doesn't try and crawl everywhere. I mean, you can see how close together these two are. This was the last one that bloomed, and this one's currently in the bloom with the brightest red, tinges of orange towards the centre, and a rich velvet red lip. And it looks like it's made of velvet. It really does look velvety. Gorgeous blooms those are. Not large, but makes up for it with numbers. There's people walking about all over the place out there. Out of my window, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people I can see out of my window. So much. It's family groups going for a walk around the block with kids. But, you know, those were all in view together. I suppose they were far enough apart, but so much for stay at home. It's just not working. Anyway, this one, the next growth it pushes out, I might be lucky. It's right on the edge of the pot at the moment, literally, right up against the edge. Now this is the growth with the blooms on. When it pushes out its new growth, the last one pushed its new growth out slightly at an angle. If it does that again, the next one will just about stay in the pot, and it can stay in its pot then. Don't really want that to crawl over the edge. Took a long time to grow a root system, that one. There's signs of a few active root tips in places, but not too many. And it also has quite a long gap. When it finishes blooming, it takes quite a while to show the next new growth. But then it was relatively new last time I was waiting. I might have to wait so long this time. So that's that one. And then this one up here, another one that was in the show yesterday. This is just a no ID hybrid. Quite honestly, I don't care what that one's called. The blooms are just one of my favourite Cattleya blooms. Again, not giants, but it's the lip. It's the fact that it's just got that red tinge and frill around the edge. I really like that a lot. As far as the plant's concerned, we cut the rhizome on this, and it did send out growths in various directions. There's a few scale on that one down the base too. Only a couple, and I probably killed them last time I saw them as well. Well, killing them twice doesn't hurt, does it? Are you dead now? Rather than pretending. But yeah, we've got various directions of growth on this one. So I don't know how many new growths I'm going to get now, but it's finished blooming on the other growths, so they're all done. And we did get one blind one here once upon a time. I think that was last year's. They pushed a sheath up and then never pushed out any buds. But we've certainly got a lead over this side of the plant. There's a possibility of one here, and that's our strong growth growing at the moment. And there's even a possibility of one coming out here. But that's a wait and see. It's not going to do much till it's finished blooming. Then we'll see what happens with that one. Right, so that leaves one. And this is the one that is half of the anomaly with the naming things that people have helped me with. Love it when things like that happen. Flounder, wherever it is, it's in the way. And its partner in crime is not much better either. I even watered my air plants this morning. Right, I've got to get some. Let me put those others back because I need the shelf again now. So we've got to go far corner. As I say, these all have their own place. They don't just get randomly shoved back on the shelf. They've all got a place where they don't touch each other. This is a really tall one, so obviously that goes at the back so that I can see the blooms over the top of the other ones. So that sits there. This one goes next so that I can see it. And then the shortest one goes at the front. And this one, the apple blossom, does not like strong light, so that has to stay back from the glass. That got burnt a couple of years ago, and I just couldn't work out what was wrong with it. I thought it was dying. Well, I thought, well, it's a Cattleya, likes strong light, doesn't it? Yeah, that one doesn't. And then this little one goes there. So we get a nice little cluster of blooms that I can see from right up the other end of the house. And then that one goes there. That's that. The gadget goes back up there. Right, now we can get at this one, the last one. And I've forgotten what the people told me, but when I said I've got 3 labels, the Tenebrosa ended up already having a label in it, so that took away the conflict, and that left 2. And somebody's basically positively identified one of them, which with the process of elimination means I know what the other one is now. One of those we looked at yesterday, this is the other one. They look very similar. The difference between the other one that looks very similar to this was the other one had climbed out of the pot and had very, like, standing on stilts, whereas this one seems to want to stay in its pot. But similar stage of growth, you know, got a nice new growth coming. Only one lead at one direction, and bifoliate, the same as the one on stilts, another bifoliate. And one is Harrisoniana, and it's actually, in fact that's this one. I've forgotten what the other one is now. I can't remember, but we saw that yesterday anyway, when I did have the labels with me. Yeah, so this is Harrisoniana, and it's a strange one because it's a named variety of Harrisoniana crossed with another named variety of Harrisoniana, both of which are actually named varieties of species. So when you cross that with that, what you end up with is Harrisoniana. You haven't changed anything, have you? So that technically is a species. And it'll bloom when this matures. So the naming saga between those 2 similar looking plants has been solved by somebody else. 2 people in fact came up with that. Saves me messing about now, apart from the fact I haven't got the labels on me. Yeah, so that's it with the Cattleyas. To add on what we looked at yesterday to what we've just looked at today, that's all my Cattleya types, he says, frantically looking round. It's the 6th today, I believe, which means in 2 days' time it's the 8th, and we'll have everything in bloom on the 8th. And I'm being very careful out here at the moment to make sure the camera doesn't point at certain parts of the grow room, because there's going to be some surprises on the 8th. Things that are expected, like, this will be in bloom soon, this will be in bloom. Yeah, well, quite a few of those are actually going to be open on the 8th. So we'll see where we go. What I'm going to do tomorrow I don't know, but I might have a day off. But certainly everything in bloom on the 8th will be on the 8th. Yeah, there's no reason to stop it. It's the middle of the week. I'm not allowed out anyway, so no reason to carry on. Thanks for dropping by, and see you next time.